In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
The ruling on the field stands.
We deliver jerseys, funny foam fingers, and everything you need for the game. But what you really get is so much more.
FedEx Delivery.
Game day spirit. What we deliver by delivering.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian Memphis Tigers podcast. This is your host, Drew Hill, the Memphis Tigers basketball beat writer. I'm joined by a special guest today. It's not Jonah Jordan, the usual co-host. This is Taylor Eldridge from the Wichita Eagle. He's the Wichita State Shockers beat writer over there. He does an excellent job covering their team, and as we all know, there's a huge game on Thursday night between the Tigers and the Shockers. Taylor, what's going on, man?
Not too much. I'm looking forward to Thursday. You know, I love covering big basketball games with two, high-level teams. And, these are two of the best in the country, two of the best defenses. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting this started and, for conference play to start. What a way.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be, first of all, one of the best games in the conference all season long. But both of us, you and I, we're very fortunate to cover the teams that we do. I do have to say, Wichita State by far last year had the best road environment in the conference. Maybe Cincinnati contended for that title a little bit, but it was pretty crazy in there, and that was a down year for Wichita State. What are you sort of expecting the atmosphere to be like on Thursday? I imagine it's going to be pretty nutty.
Oh yeah, it's going to be absolutely electric. 2 years ago, WSU's first in the conference when the conference title came down to the last day in the regular season. Wichita State, Cincinnati, two top 20 teams. That place was just electric. There's so much energy at Coke Arena. 10,500. all packed into a pretty small arena, and just it gets so loud in there. And because it's a dome, they call it the Roundhouse. The sound is just amplified, and they love their Shockers, and they especially love them when they're winning like they are right now. So 13-1. I think some fans are a little surprised by just how good this team is already. A lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores. So maybe they're a year ahead of expected to where they were supposed to be by many outside of the program. But I know they think they could be good this season, and this is the chance to make that statement that we're here, we're ready to contend for a championship year and this year. And how do you do that? You knock off the conference favorite Memphis at home. You got to hold serve early in the conference season to win that title. So this is going to be a huge game. Wichita State is planning for a blackout game. It would be the first in 7 years. They've only done it. This would be the third time in Coach Marshall's tenure. They won the other two games, took down ranked teams in both of those too. So this crowd's going to be hype. It's going to be a great college basketball atmosphere. And, I'm expecting a great game. These are two of the best, like I said, in college basketball, two of the best defenses. So I'm really looking forward to this. And, yeah, fans can expect to see a really rowdy environment on Thursday night in Wichita.
Yeah, if you are a Memphis fan looking to go to a conference road game, I would highly suggest going to a Wichita State game because they are so passionate there. Good luck getting a ticket, though. It seems like a hard place to get into. You mentioned that this is sort of a statement game for Wichita State. I think that this is a game that Memphis really, really needs, simply because you lose to Georgia over the weekend. Your non-conference schedule, you have wins over Ole Miss, which Wichita State blitzed over the weekend, win over NC State and a win over at Tennessee. All of those teams are sort of trending the wrong direction, while Memphis drops 12 spots in the polls. Penny Hardaway calls it disrespectful today and yesterday that they dropped so far after one loss. But there's no way around it. Memphis really, really needs this game. They really, really need quality wins. And when you look on down the line, Wichita State could easily be the best team that they play the rest of the year. They're virtually a lock to finish as a quadrant one game. So to win at Wichita State would be huge. What sort of position is Wichita State in? Do they need it equally as much? I know they have one fewer loss. What does their schedule look like so far, and where does Memphis compare to who they've already played?
Yeah, I think the same could be true. Memphis, WSU, Houston, they're all kind of, I feel like those are the three that kind of separated themselves in the non-conference play. They're looking like the top three right now. I would say Memphis and WSU, maybe even a tier above Houston, although I think Houston, just the talent they have, they're going to be in the mix come March. So, this is a huge, huge game for WSU. I wouldn't say that either team, is desperate. I guess the way that you look at it, it kind of depends on how you what the expectations are, I guess. If you're just looking for WSU to make the tournament, this is not a must-win game. But if you want WSU, if you want them to contend for, a top 3 seed line, top 4 seed line, this is a game that you have to take care of at home over, you have to protect home court advantage. And, Memphis is a very, very good team. They might end up being a Q1 game for WSU too. If Memphis sticks around, I think it's the top 35 or 25 in the net. So I know Memphis is rated pretty high in that as well. So, this is a game where WSU, their non-conference is looking solid, but not great. They have solid wins over Ole Miss, VCU, OU, Oklahoma State, but, are any of those teams going to be top 25? Maybe not. So, that's kind of that marquee win. That's what WSU is lacking right now. And, if they're going to move up the rankings, I think this is the way to do it, is to take care of business at home, beat Memphis. And like you said, Memphis, this is a game they need to stabilize themselves. You don't want to drop back-to-back games. But also, they're still, very comfortably in the tournament. They're still looking great come March. And they're going to have opportunities down the road to pick up Q1 wins on the road. The AAC is looking pretty good. The middle of it, if those teams can stay in the top 75, that those are all going to be Q1 games for in-conference teams. So there's going to be opportunities down the road. But I agree with you. This is a game that both teams really, really want to have to kind of make that early statement and get that early leg up in the conference race.
Yeah, if you're WSU and Memphis, you are cheering for SMU and UConn and some of those
the
temples
of the world. Yeah,
to try to stay in that middle of the pack nationally, because it would really help you out in the long run. Memphis is going into this game in a bit of a unique circumstance. DJ Jeffries, who's probably their second best player, sometimes their best player, did not play against Georgia. He was a late scratch. He had the flu. And it turns out, we learned today, that Damian Baugh, who is another starter, and his roommate also now has the flu. Both players did not practice today. Damian Baugh did not practice yesterday either. So they are relative question marks going into Wichita, which would be obviously a huge, huge loss for the team. I expect both of those guys to give it a shot, but they're a little bit, they might be a little bit under the weather. So we'll just have to wait and see there. Can you just give me the brief scouting report on Wichita State, and will they be full strength going into this game on Thursday?
Yeah, WSU's had a few injuries here and there, but relatively they're all healthy right now. The big loss was Dexter Dennis earlier a couple weeks ago. He entered the year. People pegged him as kind of the go-to guy for Wichita State. They figured he would be the one that takes that leap. People were comparing him to, Ray Allen at the NBA and just that similar type of game. They thought he had NBA potential, and that has not materialized this season yet. His sophomore year, he's only averaging 6 points. His shooting percentages have plummeted. And actually, it was announced right before the VCU game back on the 21st of December that he was taking an extended leave of absence. I think a lot of it was just to work on his mental health and, get his mind in the right place. And he had like a minor hip issue that kind of flared up. I think he's fully healthy, and he just rejoined the team for Saturday's Ole Miss game, 74-54 win over the Rebels. Didn't do much, played 10 minutes, had some good stretches on defense, but didn't score any points, only had 1 rebound. So he's, right now that's what makes this start from WSU even more impressive is that, they're 13-1 and they hardly have any production from the player that many thought was going to be their best player. And so he's back in the rotation. But he's a shell of what many expected him to be. He's playing with a lot of confidence, a lot of swagger, and he's just a big time shooter and scorer for WSU. And but really, the Shockers, they're just so balanced, they're so spread out. They don't really rely on any one player. All 5 of the players on the court are pretty solid. So that's kind of the strength, and we haven't seen it become a weakness yet, but. There's still that question, like who steps up in the closing moments, who is, going to be that big time shot taker and shot maker down the stretch. So I think we might figure that out Thursday. I'm expecting a close game, but yeah, going into it, WSU is relatively full strength.
So last year it was a game that kind of went back and forth. Memphis really relied on Jeremiah Martin, who's now gone. He was a senior. He was virtually unstoppable in that second half. They don't have that anymore. The Tigers sort of rely on a group of different guys to pick up the scoring. As you mentioned, though, these are 2 teams that are excellent on defense. Are you expecting sort of the low scoring game that the statistics would suggest?
Yeah, I don't think. Both of those games last year were in the 80s. Just because, Memphis plays at that frenetic pace. They force other people to adjust to them. And, Penny does a really good job of that, of getting teams out of their comfort zone and making them play. I do think it's going to be close. Maybe it's the first to 70. Maybe it's like high 60s, something like that. So, I do think this is going to be, a defensive slugfest. And, WSU is, they're preparing for that frenetic defense that Memphis loves to play. They run and jump, they trap, they can man you up, they can, go to that trapping zone, and they can throw so many different looks at you. So maybe a game like the Georgia one that Memphis just played, low 60s, mid 60s, something like that, where it's just kind of a grinded out game. You just have to fight and claw and scratch for every basket and manufacture points. So I'm expecting a game like that, but it would be very entertaining if both offenses are on, and maybe we do get a game in the 80s that's really, really well played and comes down to the final stretch.
And now we'll take a break for a message from our sponsor.
The Daily Memphian Tigers podcast is brought to you by FedEx. Possibilities, what we deliver by delivering.
You mentioned the zone a little bit, and Memphis they haven't done much of that this year. They usually play man-to-man defense. They like to press. They have what they call the double fist defense, the 91 Memphis double fist defense, where they try and trap everything in the backcourt. I think that they are preparing for Wichita State to handle that very well. Obviously, you guys, they have great guards over there. So I think that they're expecting Wichita State to handle that pressure better than some other teams have. And for that reason, I would not be surprised, and I believe that they've been trying to work on this in practice a little bit, if we saw a little bit more of the zone defense against Wichita State.
Really?
And I do think, in general, the styles are very interesting to me, because at Wichita State, it's a completely disciplined, not like you said, they're not totally experienced, but they play like they're veteran players, where Memphis is just going to try and raise hell basically on the floor and run as much as they possibly can. And I think that the tempo is going to play a big factor in who wins. This was something we kind of saw in Memphis against Tennessee. Tennessee really wanted to play slow. Memphis wanted to play fast. Memphis had their way in Knoxville, and it turned out to be the difference. Do you think, with the crowd hyped up and with the atmosphere crazy, that it'll be that might add to the challenge of, Wichita State trying to keep this thing under wraps and not let Memphis turn this into a NASCAR race?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And, there's going to be so much nervous energy. And I know these players, whether they say it or not, they heard the hype from Memphis. They heard, all the noise about the recruiting class. And, obviously those guys and Penny are very confident. So, they're used to that. They're used to going into places and being, the ones that everyone wants to go after. And, credit to them for getting that done in basically 1 year. But yeah, Wichita State, they're going to be super motivated. Eric Stevenson, he loves, these big games against the best teams. And, he likes kind of being that, feeling like he's the underdog. I don't know if Vegas, I would assume that WSU would be the favorite just because they're playing at home and Koch Arena is a great advantage. But, I don't know if they're going to be the underdogs, but I know they're going to feel like the underdogs just because Memphis is, they have all that hype coming in. So, that's going to be a lot for them to manage, those emotions. It's going to be hard for them to remember, maybe we slow it down instead of, pushing it up and taking that first shot in transition. Greg Marshall teams are usually very, very poised. So I wouldn't expect that to kind of get under them. But, this is a freshman. This is a team with 10 of 13 freshmen and sophomores. So, this is a young team. Some of them have been through those tough road games last year in conference play, but, two of those true freshman ball handlers have not. So, those are the two, Grant Sherfield and Tyson Etienne, two kids that play a lot for WSU. Those are the ones that are going to maybe be X factors in this game, how they handle that pressure, not getting sped up by Memphis, not letting them trap you, moving the ball quickly. Don't let it stick around the perimeter. That's going to be key. They handled it very, very well against VCU, which probably has the most, similar defense to Memphis. It's not exactly the same, but, that havoc defense is a lot of the same. Memphis tries to create havoc themselves just in a different way. So I think that VCU game will come in handy, having that experience. And WSU handled that pressure very, very well for the first 35. In the last 5 minutes, they had a double-digit lead, but they started to crack a little bit under that pressure. So I'm sure that's what Memphis is going to try to do earlier than the last 5 minutes of the game. That's going to be a key matchup, how WSU, those two freshman ball handlers, handle that pressure. And then I think another big matchup, who wins the battle on the glass. These are two great rebounding teams, a lot of big-time studs on both ends. So those are the kind of the two things I'll be watching for sure on Thursday.
I think when the line comes out, it'll be somewhere around Wichita State as a 4-point favorite. That's what Ken Palm suggests it would be. So Memphis will probably be the underdog, I would guess. Penny actually mentioned this, and you talked about motivation too on the Wichita State side. Penny, during his radio show on Monday, he just went off on the AP Top 25 for dropping them 12 spots, called it completely disrespectful, said that they've been getting no respect all year. And he went out of his way to mention that everyone, and I don't know who qualifies as everyone because I haven't seen a lot of it, but he said everyone is picking Wichita State to win this game on Thursday, and that has been a motivating factor for Memphis. I guess you could probably say the same thing on the WSU side because Memphis is a team that was picked to win the conference. A lot of people sort of looked at the Wichita State roster and said, well, we know Greg Marshall's a great coach, but I don't see why they're going to be this 13-1 team that they are now. And I don't think anybody really saw that coming. Have they been playing with a chip on their shoulder? Do you think that that's sort of been a motivating factor and will play a role in this game too?
Yeah, and I think, that's, both coaches are going to try to find their own motivation. And, Penny, like he said, Greg Marshall even touched on it today in his press conference. He was surprised that Memphis dropped that far. And, you don't have to be a Memphis fan to be disappointed. That's bad for the American. That's bad for the whole conference. You want teams in the conference to be ranked, higher. And Marshall said, he thought maybe 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range after a loss. But yeah, dropping them all the way to 21, definitely eyebrow raising. And I don't think it took any of the luster off of this matchup. It's still top 25, still, two of the best teams, if not the two best teams in the American playing right now. So yeah, I think there's a lot of motivation going into WSU going into this game. And there's a little bit of let's prove it. Like you said, not many people had high expectations for this team coming into the season. I don't know how familiar Memphis fans are with Teddy Allen, but he sat out last year. He was supposed to be basically the leading scorer on this WSU team, but got into some trouble over the summer, got kicked off the team. And then Dexter Dennis, like I mentioned, he was supposed to be the other guy. He was supposed to take that major leap, be maybe an NBA prospect. And, neither, Teddy's not with the team, and Dexter, isn't playing very well right now. So it makes it even more surprising that WSU's in this position where they are. And like I said, they have a lot of good wins, but they probably don't have a great win. A win over Memphis, that's going to be a great win. It's going to look great come March. And, Memphis is obviously going to, well on its way to having a great season. And, the top of the American is looking pretty good right now. So, I think the Shockers are motivated solely to get the lead in the American, get a step up on a conference title contender, and then, take care of business at home. And then, throw in the blackout and all the hype around this game. It's going to be on national TV on ESPN2. And I think all of those factors, they're going to be very, very hyped up for this game. And no doubt Memphis will be, like you said, they're coming off a loss. They're mad. They don't want to lose 2 in a row. They feel like, everyone is picking WSU now compared to before the season. I think Memphis was kind of the popular team. So, the roles of maybe they've reversed a little bit in the weeks since. And I think both teams are going to be coming in with a chip on their shoulder. And, it's going to make for a very, very entertaining basketball game. Maybe there's a little, I don't know how much of a chippy play it'll be compared to maybe that Ole Miss Memphis game or Tennessee, but I do think that these are two teams that want to win the conference, and I don't know if they're rivals, but they don't like each other. I'm sure of that. So I think it's going to be a very well played basketball game on Thursday, and between two teams that are highly competitive, who take after their coaches, and no one's going to want to leave Coke Arena with an L. So I can't wait to see these teams get after it. I'm really looking forward to the game.
I know that Penny and Greg Marshall actually have a lot of respect for each other. Greg Marshall gave Alex Lomax, released him from his national letter of intent because he was originally headed to WSU. And so Penny and him sort of built a relationship that way. They have a lot of respect for each other, but I also think that both of these programs are trending sort of upward in the right direction right now. They play two very contrasting styles. So it would be really fun if this turned out to be a rivalry game every year, and you could just bank on these two teams being at the top of the conference, and it created this super fun atmosphere. But I want to do a couple more things. Let's just do quick keys to the game on either side. What do you think will be the difference for Wichita State to win? And then I'll give some Memphis takeaways, and we can get on out of here.
Yeah, I think for WSU, it's on defense. I think this is going to be a battle of the defenses, and whichever one can force the other outside of their comfort zone. And Memphis a little susceptible to turnovers. I know missed free throws that have come back and bit them too recently. So winning the turnover battle, I think that's going to be huge. Memphis loves to get up and press and force other teams into turnovers, but if WSU can handle that pressure, limit its turnovers to maybe around 10, and then force, somewhere around 15, maybe upwards, that would be a key to the game. And also, I think rebounding. WSU, ever since the West Virginia loss, their only loss of the season, they got punked on the boards that game. West Virginia has two big-time studs in the front court, and they had their way against Wichita State. They gave up 17 offensive rebounds, got pushed around on the glass. After that loss, Greg Marshall publicly challenged his big men, said, hey, we can't, we were soft. We just got, West Virginia just wanted it more. And ever since that game, 6 of the 7, WSU has dominated the rebounding battle. They played East Carolina. It's about a dead even split. So they've been much better. But, none of those teams have had bigs like, Precious or DJ Jeffries or guys like Memphis has. So this is going to be the biggest test for WSU, literally and figuratively, since that West Virginia game, and how WSU responds on the boards. Jaime Echenike is going to be big, 6'11" center for WSU. Trey Wade, a little undersized power forward, but he plays way bigger than his size. And WSU kind of has like a 4-man rotation at center, so I think they haven't been playing that recently, but I do think that Marshall will go deeper in his bench for this game, and we'll see that rotation at center, sub him in 2-3 minutes, and just let him go all out for rebounds. And WSU has the size. I don't think they have the athleticism that Memphis does, but they do have the size, so they're going to have to be very, very disciplined in their blocking out and make sure they're in good position. So, Memphis doesn't get those second, third, fourth chances. So I think that's going to be the key to the game: limit turnovers, force turnovers on the other end, and then the rebounding battle. Those second chance points are going to be big in this game, I think.
For the Tigers, I think there's 3 things in particular that are going to be really important. The first is making sure that they play at their tempo and they don't allow Wichita State to settle in and play in front of that home crowd. And because they are very disciplined, they're going to make good choices on offense. To force turnovers is going to be a little bit more difficult against the Greg Marshall coach team. So they've got to be able to run. They've got to be able to get up and down. That's going to be really, really, really important. The other thing is finding a defense, and I know their defense has been excellent this year, but finding a defense other than that man-to-man, just because that the X's and O's are going to be a big part of this game. And like I said, maybe they have a zone or something waiting for when Wichita State can finally find those holes and find some points. They're going to have something to try and stop them on that end. And I think, if there's one thing you can rely on, it's that defense for Memphis. And then lastly, they've got to find some offense. They've really, really struggled on the offensive end. Somebody's going to have to shoot the ball better. You don't know what you're going to get from DJ Jeffries because he's been sick. You don't know what you're going to get from Damian Ball because he's sick. So you're going to have to find some 3-point shooting. Maybe that's Tyler Harris, who struggled against Georgia, went 0 for 5 from 3. Maybe that's Alex Lomax, scoring a little bit as much as he distributes. But you're going to have to find offense in some way. But I'm really, really looking forward to Thursday. I'm going to be there. The Daily Memphian sports columnist Jeff Calkins will be there. Taylor will be there. If you want to follow Taylor on Twitter, you can follow him at Taylor Eldridge. You should be keeping up with the rest of the league, especially in the position that Memphis is in right now. They need Wichita State to be good, whether they win or lose this game. So you should be a Shockers fan from here on out if you like the Tigers. You can follow me on Twitter at DrewHill_DM. And you can get this podcast or any other Daily Memphian podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. Thanks for listening.
We deliver tickets, team merchandise, and everything you need for the game. But what you really get is so much more.
FedEx Delivery.
Game day spirit. What we deliver by delivering.
In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.